council administers, and they're essentially being gutted. So, anyway,
I can't pay attention to it. I only got Idaho Springs.
well,
That's all I can think about.
Yeah, but
yeah, but that's, yeah,
I know.
is coming in our, like, once they get to the tunnel,
yeah,
then
what's
they come on the
next?
other side of the tunnel and they've gotta work this way too.
Well,
Well,
because,
they've already done all the 106 for that.
right.
They're not gonna put any more money in this in a long time.
But, like, there is a absolute build out of this corridor, like through town to not sure quite where. That could lead to more expansion in the future. I'm sure they're not spending another 800 million
Yeah.
in the next few years.
Well, the state, and usually those federal funds are gonna have to go through CDOT, and the state has an equivalent law, so it's not something.
It's like whether that, well, that's right, for the state side of it,
Hmm.
yeah. It's a, you know, since the 1970s, it's been the system that's worked, and they don't like it.
Well, if there's a system that's worked, let's just throw it out.
Yeah, anyway, it's.
I would argue that it perhaps didn't work. It used to be my job to review them, and depending on the federal agency, they just did whatever they wanted, especially HUD. HUD never.
Oh, I don't know, my state historic preservation office sued and was sued in
Which one?
Connecticut. It was war, and the attorney general, who's now the United States Senator, was a real strong supporter of it. So anyway, it's happening. Some historic district commissions, historic preservation commissions are taking positions on it. City governments are. It's making a squawk. There is a webinar, National Alliance Preservation Commissions has a webinar on next Friday at noon about it.
Maybe I'll hop in. I haven't seen anything from like the state historic, like History Colorado, I haven't seen anything.
Lindsay hasn't sent anything?
Let me
I
see.
like haven't seen an official position or.
Let me see,
anything where
did
they
you all
have,
get the
like,
NAPC announcement for that? Let's see if I've got it.
Signed up for this, but. We wanna just wait another couple of minutes.
I'll give people like 2 or 3 more minutes and then we're gonna get started.
We're just chatting. Some pre.
Yeah.
We,
That's fine.
I do think, and I don't know again where this goes, Dylan, you'll have to tell me. I do think that it's okay for us as a commission, if we agree on this, to say, look, we need to start looking at how do we, like, this needs to be an ongoing, you know, how do we strengthen, whether it's the buffer zone or the overlay or the municipal codes that we need to look at so that council, because I will say this, last year, after we finished the design guidelines, Dylan and I both said to council, hey, you know, we should like totally look at our municipal codes. And council was like,
Yeah,
there was no enthusiasm.
and I think early, I would say the beginning of this year, I have taken it to the planning commission and kind of said, hey, should we think about like stronger, at least clarified architectural guidance for new developments? And I think the appetite, similar with council, there wasn't really that appetite
It was
because I
me and
think
Dylan.
until you see something coming down the pipeline and you say, oh, wait, that's something that maybe could pass muster and we don't like that, it doesn't really hit home in a real way. And that's where I say, like, on the east end of town, if you could get a 46, 50-foot tall building, you,
Hey, Mike,
that's, easy to say, well, that makes sense.
yeah, but that's gonna be,
When you
that
look
changes
at it,
that
you
whole
say-
landscape down there, even if it is in the place where the current cop shop is, that
Right.
changes like the whole landscape.
Yeah, it does, you know, and I was
How
led.
tall is Riverbend?
Bend is 35. It's, you know, the way we take height for the code is like for a non-flat roof, we take the average from top of the parapet to the
Can you tell me, Mike?
midpoint, so like field house, some of them are actually like, or even 40 at the absolute peak, because the way we actually measure the 35, they're not the true absolute. And that could certainly be another change, but I think there's a bigger discussion with, like we've talked about, just mass of a building makes a huge difference. And so do you really want a 35-foot tall building next to a 20-foot tall building neighborhood? But almost everyone has a 35-foot height limit for two-family and multi-family, so.
Well, I would just say, I would be, you guys tell me what you think. I would be amenable to us continuously working on this where it is appropriate for HPRC, and then you just have to keep kicking us in council.
Right,
I will kick with you.
that's the key thing is, like I said, I have about, right now I have 12 work session items,
Is that for HPRC or for council?
just for council.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I'd say 10 of which are coded. Or 9 of which are coded.
Okay.
So I have like a bunch of different, some are really minor, some are like architecture or parking stuff. And so it could take up a whole work session potentially.
Well, I feel like the appetite for clarification and maybe, strengthening some of our codes is there. I would like to take advantage of it I feel like by the end of the year, we may not have that same enthusiasm. So I would like to take advantage of it while we can.
But I think, it is important because I don't think interest in development in Idaho Springs is going to go away. We only have a limited number of development sites without people tearing down functional buildings. But that happens all over the country. People tear down functional buildings and build something else. And so I think the East End especially is kind of ripe for some.
Well, that one
redevelopment.
that's next to Conrad's,
That's for sale.
that's
There's
for
a couple
sale, and it's a good
others.
size, like you could plop a good size something there easily.
Right. And so it's a good opportunity to say, how do we want,
That's much more professional than me.
how do we want it to be, like these things to kind of look, if there are changes needed, let's do it now before the action.
Parking, the private parking lots are a perfect example of this. We've got 4 now, 4? 1, 2, 3,
If you consider the wellness center to be private,
it is.
which I would, then I'd say technically there's 4 operators. The ones on the east end by Minor and they're like 2 lots technically. So there's 5 lots with 4 operators.
4 operators. And we had to put brakes on it. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We'll call the work session to order. And guys, this is very informal, because this is a work session and Erica is present.
I don't know if we have enough people to present. We can just have a conversation. Unless you want, if you think.
Well, you have the, I don't know if it makes sense I can just pull stuff up as is helpful for you. My thought is that sometimes we get a lot of people to meetings and Tuesday evening's hard, so thank you too for showing up to the meeting. We meet on Tuesdays. We're the Historic Preservation Review Commission, which reviews applications for exterior changes to buildings that are on the historic register, so all of downtown. And then there's 15 or 16 other sites around the city. And so that's the kind of nuts and bolts are, you wanna change your historic building, you come to this board for authorization, but I think there's a big focus in the city at the moment of, at least on this board, to say, how do we get more people interested in preserving larger areas of the city and maybe have a residential historic district on the west end or in the Sunnyside neighborhood or wherever. And is that maybe the best way or most effective way of protecting neighborhood character and giving people opportunities for funding?
You guys would like to introduce yourselves, tell us where you live? I mean, I know, but maybe not everybody knows.
Here's where we live. Anyways, across from the rec center, 1120 Minor Street. It's the USDA Forest Ranger.
You guys know it, it's got the fab garage.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I
the
know,
garage
God.
is huge.
But it's also beautiful, it's a beautiful building.
It is, yeah. there were only 8 bidders on it, and it went on Zillow, and we were in Pittsburgh when it was on. But I always tease Mark, speaking of the garage, that if he doesn't get to die first, because if he does, I'll be the hottest chick in town for one reason, for the garage, not me, the garage. 3,200 square foot, but nonetheless, I'm Annie and Mark Bauer. We're talking, he'll do the rest of the talking.
And tell me, I talked with Mark a little bit, what are you all interested in as far as what brought you in tonight?
Oh, I came in because he said there was some talk about historic properties.
What little I gathered in the other day when we talked, I thought there was guidance, maybe even financial assistance to not renovate, but improve our building. So I just came down to see, and you mentioned something about, oh yeah, and somebody's into like restoring windows. Okay, it's like, okay, well, that's like, wow, okay, that's
I was actually that
interesting.
excited about it too.
But yeah, so I didn't know there was a standing Tuesday meeting. I had no idea what commission or what group this
Historic.
represents. So yeah, I just showed up because I heard about it at Sadie's meeting the other
Sadie's
day.
meeting. Yeah, it's Historical Preservation Review Commission. So if you are a historical building, if you do something with the exterior of your building, this is the trade-off. You come and talk to us and say, hey, here's what I want to do. And we say, okay, yeah, that's great. Or, are you staying within your historical character? Your building has a period of significance attached to it. Like downtown, for example, is 1880 to 1920.
Yeah.
So that whatever you're doing to the outside has to fit into that time frame of architectural character. And then we also help you, if you do that, we help you access tax credits. Unfortunately, I wish the city had a grant fund where we could say, let me help you out with that. We do not. But we try to help you access tax credits, find resources that can help you with tax credits or give you better ideas so that you can actually restore the character of your house. And maybe it's not such an onerous one. Then I'm gonna turn over to Erica.
That's basically it, yeah. So we have, the tax credits are our only incentive, and that's a state tax credit, so depending on if you have state income. Otherwise, it's probably not really worthwhile, but you have to do $10,000 in work, so it has to be somewhat substantial, it can't just be a little thing.
Tax credits as in income tax credits?
Yeah.
Okay, not real estate tax.
Right, no, and
So it's taken off the tax as opposed to being a deduction, so it's taken off your bottom line.
Yeah, right, due or.
Yeah. And you can take it over a period of 10 years, so it's not like most of us.
So it's not $10,000 in 1 year.
The tax credit you can take over and.
So you do $10,000 worth of work, you get tax credit worth X amount, but if your tax burden is only
Less than that.
less than that, you can do it each year for up to 10 years, and that's
Yeah.
because I don't have. If I did $100,000 rehabilitation, like I wouldn't get the full tax credit, right? I'm not paying $100,000 taxes.
Yeah. I'm not aware of anyone that's taken it all in 1 year, but
I think there's a maximum limit of like 50,000, or at least there used to be 50,000.
yeah, and they're always changing, changing the rules, but usually not for the residential one. The commercial one is a lot more complicated than.
So the goal is to assist the homeowner to preserve property in somewhat of its original form, to, I guess, enhance the respect we have for the history of this town. But have you been to, is it Las Vegas, New Mexico? Where they have a whole thing, you can just drive around looking at old homes, and it might not have a sign on the home, but the address is clear, but on your thing, it'll say 1120 Miners, or this was, it's CCC built, blah, 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 1930, whatever. But I'm just
We would
saying,
love
did you ever
that.
have an interest in something that to interest people to linger longer and spend money around here? Or is there just no place for more cars to drive through town? Or aren't there that many interesting
It's a
places?
walking tour, I think. I don't know if
Of
that's
homes?
development or what. It might be more like historic district based.
Yeah.
But
Was the museum making some kind of walking tour thing?
Yeah, that's what I had heard about.
Yeah, the visitor center, the historical society who runs the visitor center, they have a pretty nice, like, pretty professionally made, booklet, I guess. It's like 96 properties around the city. So this is like first print, I guess. So I think as we add additional, there's this distinction between like my house, which was built in 1900, but is not designated as a historic building, and maybe or maybe not is still worthy of designation. And something that's on the list, I guess.
What's the checklist to be designated?
Well, there's a few things, like the number one, which Lisa had mentioned, is are you within our kind of period of significance, which is that kind of late 1800s, early 1900s.
See, we wouldn't be
They
able
don't
to.
want to establish their own
But-
house significance. on the property.
1939, CCC built.
But 1939 and the
You want me to
CCC
send
build,
Right,
Yeah.
so that's just kind of number one, right? But then other
mine's mine.
criteria would be like associated with the lives of persons significant to the city, associated with events that have had a significant contribution to the broad patterns of the city's history, embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, represents the work of a master, possesses high artistic value, has yielded or may be likely to yield information important to prehistory or history, things like that. And so I think probably a building that has an interesting and important history to the city that's over 50 years old could still be.
Probably be more the county. than the
no,
city.
but actually, the nice thing about doing a local historic, because you can do local, state, or federal. You know, downtown is a national, it's a federal historic district,
Wow.
but we have some places around town, that are local, meaning Idaho Springs has designated them. So for your house, I would say, let's start with local, would you say, let's start with local? And designate this is significant and give the reasons why. And I know we talked, Mark talked about he wanted to get rid of some of the aluminum siding. What's under there?
Oh, he's got a, you should see the blueprints that we're seeing.
I will
I
cover.
have
both your
pictures
side.
of when I have pictures of when it was built in
Can we see?
1940.
What year did you guys buy it?
14. The
14?
auction closed in November of 14. And I didn't bring it, but, so I have something here. Okay, Office Archaeology, Historic Preservation, Arapahoe and Roosevelt
Oh,
National
okay.
Forest. And I have a letter to, I don't think it's to Bob Boland, but anyways, it says that our house is, does meet the criteria to be declared a historic thing. And then I have this, it's a publication, and it says, okay, the site associated with recreation and administrative development of Arapahoe National Forest and is the best preserved and most masterful example of a brick rustic style building in Colorado.
Okay, so that would actually, that would,
We just wanted the garage.
Well, that's what I was gonna
And,
say, because it
then-
left federal ownership, it had to have been surveyed before. So the state has to have done all the research for you already.
Yeah,
You should see the
and,
original blueprint.
I actually have there's letters from Bob Boland, because, the Historic Society had expressed interest in buying this from the government, but then, the director of the rec center at the time,
you told me
and-
about that.
yeah, Dane, and the city of Idaho Springs. And as soon as more, if only one of those entities had expressed interest, they would have been, it would have been a done deal. But as soon as two or three, in this case, express interest in it, then, it says, that it has to go up, even private citizens have to be allowed, so they auctioned it off on, govdeals.com. And then there were only 8 bidders in the country, and it's just, well, I don't know who the other 6 that dropped out, but the only one I know of was Dane at the rec center, which I believe he bid more than he was
Yeah,
authorized.
he ran us up
Somebody
another
owes
90
me
grand.
something,
Yeah.
okay?
Without authorization,
But,
but that's okay, we're.
Yeah, and History of Architecture, USDA.
Are you in there?
we are figure, 2-50 right there, okay? So
That's cool.
And you guys probably knew Cassandra that recently passed. I forget her last name, Cassandra, she lived there. Anyway, she just passed on. She was a Forest Service employee.
she worked at the Forest Service, and then when the Forest
Visitor
Service
Center.
moved the visitor center down
Yeah.
to our visitor center, she worked there. But our place, I think it was empty for like 8 years. The Forest Service basically decided it is not in their best, supplying employee housing was not something that they needed to do anymore. So, but she was the last person that lived in the house, but like I said, it was empty for about I heard like 8 years.
Did it look like 8 years when you went in there?
We haven't done anything to the
No.
house,
And they
replaced the sump pump.
We
and
refinished the wood.
Yeah, we finished the floors, that's
But
it.
they're the original.
I mean, well, being that it was very solidly built by the CCC, both the garage and the house, and even our interior plaster walls. I mean, there is not like one crack anywhere in the plaster. But what I had mentioned to Sadie and Lisa, yeah, is that, I mean, being that I have pictures of what it used to look like, and one of them is, it's still under construction, the wood shutters aren't on it, but then here in the end, so, I mean, I would like it to, depending on what it would cost me. So I have the original drawings of the house. I have a, 14-page stamped, red receipt stamp, the original bill of materials of the house, specifying, specific Anderson casement windows. And now all the casement windows have been taken out and they put in dump tons. But I would like to see it, because right now the whole house has horizontal aluminum siding, even all the way up to the peak. And, I wouldn't mind if it looked like horizontal up to the peaks and then vertical, darker brown above it. And I had always toyed with the idea, I'm sure everybody's heard of This Old House. And so they get involved where there is a story behind it. And I figured with all my stuff, our stuff about the house and this, what's our banner say at the beginning? Where stories begin or something like
Where
that?
stories live.
Where stories
Where the
live.
covers begin
Okay.
and where stories live is the.
There you go. So, I mean, our house is a ongoing living story. And with everything going on with the town, I always, and I always thought of going on, I've been on their website, This Old House website, and, you just fill out this form and you describe, you talk about yourself and you describe what you want to do, and then you tell a story about, and I figured, geez, this town has, obviously a very great story, that is even, being written as we speak, so,
And people love the CCC. They built Red Rock.
Oh,
Right.
They're all over the place. So I'm just saying it's people, they always.
and I guess with This Old House, they facilitate getting, local contractors and possibly like, see, me, I would, I'd write to Hardy Board and I'd say, hey, I need this color and this color, and I have a historic building and we're gonna do it. And I've already applied to, This Old House, and I talked to the Anderson, I'd write Anderson Windows a letter and see what they would want to do and put up basically, I don't know, signage. I mean, if these 96, I have no idea where these 96 buildings in town are. Is that
Yeah,
town proper?
are they homes too, not just businesses? Wow.
Some of them, yeah, within the city limits.
Okay,
I'd
so
say
some of
that
them are commercial.
Most of them, I mean, I'd say it's mostly all of
46 are
the
in the historic.
historic district.
Okay, so it's basically all commercial buildings.
About half and half.
Yeah,
Okay.
because there are
Okay.
like the old, there's a number of, say 3 or 4 houses that are designated. And then there's a number of others that are not formally designated, but have.
Historical
Yeah.
significance.
Yeah, I would think if there was a
There's a number
sign.
in Colorado
you know, there was a sign on my house saying, oh, ours is number, 28, and you can go to the city's website or any of the 96 and read the story about what the various buildings have gone through.
You are singing to the choir.
And I will tell you this, I'll take my signs down.
But not your chalkboard, we love your chalkboard.
Oh, thanks, I have to redo that, but I take my signs down that quotes from high school students and everything else.
If the Forest Service has actually cited this as being the best example of a particular architectural style, that would seem to be something that would be worth submitting a grant application to the state. If it is, as they say,
Yeah,
it's being cited as being the best example of a style.
what's funny, because they say example of a brick rustic style building. I think they must be talking about the garage, because the house is a frame
Yeah.
building.
It's,
Okay.
they put siding on it, but what's behind the siding?
Well, it's wood siding, that's,
Yeah.
that was
They just
built.
put aluminum,
I mean, I could tell you exactly, I got the bill of materials, I could tell you exactly what's on it.
and they're very,
But it's some kind of, anyway, some kind of wood siding, but
Mike, with your question on like, or mention of like a state grant because of that statement, is that even though it's not formally designated, it would still potentially be eligible?
I think the state would want it to be designated, which is something that
It's required to be
that
designated.
the city could work with the property owners about designated.
Right,
Now, I think in terms of the grant, if there is aluminum siding on it, it's very likely they would say the aluminum siding needs to come off.
well, that's what I want.
yeah, we like it removed, yeah.
I mean, private property owners don't typically get the state grants. I mean, it's just too competitive.
Although this is a former US Forest Service building.
Right, but they base those grants more so on the current use and how that's going to go towards, is it a community benefit? I mean, I'm trying to think, the last time we had a non-commercial. I mean, I can't even think of one, and I've been scoring them for years. So I don't want to get your hopes up.
Oh, no. We don't expect anything, we just thought we'd come.
but the tax credits.
The tax credits though.
Yeah.
And the process to, I guess, like we mentioned, there's 3 layers of designation. There's the local, which is, basically city council ultimately would pass an ordinance saying we have designated your home as a local historic site. And then, over time, we've been working on local historic sites and other sites, getting like little plaques for the site that says local historic site and some information and that sort of thing. So that would be a nice little feature, if nothing else. And then on top of that, there's state designations. So it's a Colorado landmark and we have a number of those. And then of course the National Register of Historic Places, which those get a lot more complicated, whereas a local designation, you have an overwhelming amount of evidence to suggest that it would be pretty easy, I think, if city council's interested in designating it as local and then helping if you wanted to go even further.
I have to find a little bit more, because even here it says a statement of significance where I mentioned that. And it is significant under criteria A and C. And I remember that the Forest Service or the government, they evaluated our place and they says, yes, it is significant. They also evaluated the work center which is it continues to be a Forest Service property down there. And they said, well, that really wasn't significant which, I mean, I don't see why not? I mean, well, but I don't, I wasn't one of the judges or evaluators, but, there's multiple buildings. I'm sure back in the day, they housed, summer help and firefighters and everything down there. And, and it's a nice piece of land, but, anyways,
It's the size of
I
3
have to
lots for the rest of
find.
Idaho Springs.
Pardon?
It's probably a 3-lotter, if you look at the rest of Idaho Springs and the size of, most lots.
Yeah.
So if you all are interested in doing local designation, how would we go about helping them get started with that?
Well, it's pretty Easy. I had put together last year, I guess, like a checklist that kind of says it's step-by-step guide. And I can send that to you, or I can print one here and then
That'd be good
open up
too.
the office and grab it. It's a relatively easy process. We're going to actually be embarking on that process, starting next week for the Roberts Brothers Garage. It's not formally designated, even though it's directly next to the historic district, and that's, going to be leased for the Bear Creek Center for Arts and Education to do their arts and education programming in there. And so to help open up some grant funding, they want to formally designate it. So
The
that,
green building,
yeah, like the old,
right by the rec center?
no, the one behind
with- I
Bojo's. The one behind Bojo's, it's like the antique storage garage that's
Oh,
just in the
okay.
parking lot.
What about that place across the street from us that Rabbit told us was once like a stop on the, I don't know, like.
That's the big green building.
Yeah, the big green one that was owned by.
I don't know who owned
Casino
it.
company. I mean, isn't, well, I'm sorry, I digress, I apologize. When you said green, it's just, I got it.
But, so anyway,
Excuse me.
that process, it starts with you basically put together a one-page sheet that says that we'd like to petition to be a local designated site. We submit that to city council says, great, it looks like you're probably eligible, let's, have HPRC review it, so then you'd come back to this meeting and this board would review it and give a recommendation, one way or the other, and then you go back to city council and they
Meetings.
formally designate via ordinance and so it takes a little time, a couple of months just for the meetings, but it's really not, you already have a lot of the work here because of all these resources you already have. So it would be pretty easy for me to guide you through the process
Thanks.
without really any substantial
Where the
costs.
letters there.
Do you have access to Compass? You should be able to look it up and see if they got site for it.
I just pulled these out of my
If that was
files.
2013, it should be.
I have.
Good.
I have more.
Really, their work.
Because even
Probably
when,
mostly done.
on
True.
Bob Boland gave us.
And this would start as a local.
Various
That's
things.
simplest, right? Because then we get your designation on it and you're eligible for state tax credits. I don't know if, in this case, it seems like there wouldn't be major trade-offs of designating, I think. You all have heard more concerns about designation than I have, but it's always worth discussing that.
I think the difference though is they would like designated, and the other thing to know is that when it's designated, we don't look at what you're doing inside your house, you can do whatever you want. This is just for the exterior. You
We'd
know?
love to return it to its original. We'll do the work. We'll take a break on the supply costs.
Which would be awesome.
It would be pretty cool. But it'd be nice if the local people, like, I didn't know we had a list of all, I mean, I knew about Minor Street, stuff like that. But I wasn't aware that homes and what have you.
Well, we're gonna be working on the wayfinding stuff, telling you around town, and I've asked, I'm sure Dylan has put his oar in as well. That maybe we can, add on some of the historic stuff.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then people take pride in their community more. They don't feel like it's just Denver moving in and it's still Idaho Springs and it's character.
Well, I think you saw that though with the discussions around what happens with Carlson. There was a lot of community concern with the aesthetics and the overall, end look of Idaho Springs,
Sure.
which I was very happy about.
Yeah.
Regardless of how it
I'll
went,
cry about it.
but the fact that people, because we do a lot of work with, hey, you should come, that's why Erica did this tonight, because, hey, you should come, we should talk about it. How do you do this? So every person that says, yes, I'm interested, we love that. And so however we can help you, we will.
Yeah.
It is a couple, but it will be a couple of meetings.
Yeah,
Right, but.
we're not in a hurry.
But I'm perfectly happy to hold your hands through the process and
Thanks.
make it really headache free.
Yeah. If you could print that and then also email it to Mark, then we got a backup, but we won't have to use it for any.
No, that's perfect. I'll grab your info.
Thanks.
And
I think it's worth asking the State Historical Society, State Historic Preservation Office to toss their files for the documentation on the property. Because if they did a formal determination of eligibility, there might be some
Sure.
material that's useful there. And you've got the dates, which they should be able to.
Yeah, and I'm
Find
pretty
out.
sure. I wanna say it's Colorado, maybe I'm mixing up Colorado and Wyoming, but one of them has a historic context specifically for Forest Service buildings,
Interesting.
so that would also.
Yeah, it's such a big part of all our lives. I mean, there's a Forest Service property sign, everybody lights up when they see that brown thing and they're going camping.
Here's
Yeah.
the compass. Do you know compass? But you found your address on this.
Oh.
this state. So this database says it's section 106 eligible. Should be like 1997.
So 97, it was still owned by Forest Service.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's-
As you're aware, section 106, National Historic Preservation. It's in one of my letters.
Right, they're trying, the Historical Society here wanted to get it so we're in consultation.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now, one thing, because I guess when, because Bob Boland at the time, he was the one expressing interest as a representative of the Historical Society. But I think somewhere in my files, it said that, well, even though it qualifies, it may have never been officially designated, which I doubt that it has. And I think he mentioned something that, well, Historical Society is still an entity, a public entity. He says that designation may mean less being able to be designated as a historical if the property ever transferred to a private owner. Okay, which, you know, I can understand, because they said, well, if the city had it, or if the county owned it through the rec center, or if the Historical Society owned it,
It's the resource that meets the criteria regardless of who owns it.
Okay,
So I
okay.
think that's,
yeah. Well, then it turns out one time, another person used to work at the Forest Service, Deborah Eklund.
Yeah.
Okay,
He's
so
still there.
they were having, somebody was retiring, and she goes, oh, we have a new boss, they don't want to let us have a retirement party, you know, at the visitors, at the current Forest Service place up there. Oh, could we have it at your house? Okay, and I thought, oh, this will be great, because all these people will come, and I'll be able to get questions answered that I've always had. Nobody knew anything. It was,
And you're all
Yeah.
welcome to come on a tour if
I
you
mean,
want one.
there
have
was
you
so
meeting over
many
there?
things
Yeah.
that,
You should be careful what you
Oh,
offer.
yeah.
We're all in hi tour.
Okay. It'll be a potluck though, you feed us. No, I'm kidding. But it is a cool, yeah. It's full. Sadly, we,
That is what a garage is for.
Yeah.
Is to put things in it
And leave them in.
and leave it. So I have a question, like in looking at your garage, is the one that's over on the left, if you're looking at it like on the west side, is that a garage? Is it like an office?
you mean the far left end of it,
Yeah, so if I'm looking at
the western side.
the western
yeah,
side,
yeah,
is
because there's
that,
5 garage doors, and then there's a man door
yes,
to the west. And, well, the last 5 years that I worked for Westinghouse, that was my office out there.
It's got a bathroom,
Yeah,
poured,
it's plumbing and.
poured concrete
There's-
basement, 3
there's
rooms.
1, 2,
oh my God.
3.
You should see the.
There's
bed,
3
the room.
rooms.
Can we come
Yeah,
to the
there's-
tour?
Extensive.
Yeah, there's 3 rooms on that side.
Dan, and
that
you've
have-
been in.
currently have
I
beds
have,
in
not
them.
that part of it though, this is the garage in the house.
Yeah,
But yeah, the east side, the top peak has an attic, and the west side actually has our garage has a basement and an attic.
not the full garage, just the end.
Yeah, just
Most
that.
houses
just
don't have a
that last-
basement, but their garage has a basement.
Yeah.
Just part of it, just part, but it's big enough.
Well. there's
Unfortunately,
not
when
too
we
many
moved, we
houses
just brought
in town.
everything, we didn't sort anything, and then we got all our parents' stuff and all that when they passed. But it is a cool place, we would love to restore it now, if an opportunity arises, we just assume that we. But it's worth a try. So
No.
we appreciate your open hearts and
But
ears.
if you would like to, if you wanna start the process, Dawn is really
Oh,
good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You know, how do you start it, how do you get it
Yeah,
going?
we'll get started. And we'll hold your hand that you offered. So thanks for guiding us.
Of course.
And I'll leave it at he's disorganized. But we'd be glad to show it to you if you ever.
I
Right,
still,
bye.
well, like I said, I've toyed with the idea over the years of, you know, and the only thing I can think of is this old house. I don't think there's any other,
It's worth writing them.
There are
place
shows on that are
that
amazing
does
in
that.
Alaska and all over the
And,
place.
you know, Because, like I said, I think, because even it's, it's been a long time since I watched any of their shows, but, they end up going around the community and talking about, why this place is so great, and I figure, well, geez, that's.
Yeah, we heard
That's
about the
exactly
floats
what-
being made and the high school floats were made in there and,
Oh, yeah, back
All
in the
kinds of
day,
stuff.
Cause
yeah.
it's big enough,
yeah,
you guys have a nice big open yard between the
Yeah.
house and
yeah.
the garage.
And luckily, the developer down there sent his asphalt crew down and gave us like a 40% discount, so we got the bracket.
The guys that did 4 Points?
Yeah. We paid them, but we saved by 40% because I didn't have to have them bring it up from Denver. They had extra asphalt. You know how they go around, everyone,
They have not been to, I miss.
I don't know anything about them, but that was nice.
Right.
But anyway, so we're proud it's gonna be to live here and all the people here are fantastic. But I think it's great the more people know about their own town too,
Well, that's one of the things that we're trying to encourage is that if you want to designate your house, we want to help you designate it and do it in the easiest, least hassle-free way,
Yeah.
so that you can apply for tax credits and you can, improve your house and make it better. make it-
Yeah, we can restore it and have a plaque. We don't mind having to sign them, not the signs I
You
have
could
up
do a
there now, but the
Yeah,
sign
we
that
we
we.
got it for city-owned sites, but the historical society put it on all the buildings around the historic district. That's back maybe 10 to 15 years ago. They even put it on the Roberts Brothers garage, which is.
The plaques, yeah, I see.
Yeah, they're all over town. The
Wow.
Right.
historical society did that. We've been adding them to the city zone sites.
Yeah.
They're
Sure.
not up yet, but like, for example, like the ones at the water.
Yeah.
We're like updating that for some of the other sites that don't have them. And, but yeah, it's funny, some non-historic sites have it, like the Roberts Brothers garage, the one that I was mentioning earlier. It has a plaque, even though it's not yet a local site.
Well, then we won't have.
Right. So
And
it's
there's,
just-
and there's so much respect from citizens when you do take care of their grandparents, great grandparents, or not necessarily theirs, but the history of their town that people work so hard to build
Right.
and not hopefully take apart for just developers,
I think though that,
modern stuff.
city council could be asked if they would be willing to sponsor plaques.
Sure.
To me, that is not a,
Yeah, it's a relatively speaking small investment in historic sites. And the benefit, I think there's a lot of benefits, one of them of being like once you designate, your next door neighbor can be reasonably assured that you're not going to tear down the garage and build
Or Airbnb, we don't do any of that stuff, we like our privacy. But I will say, our two neighbors next door, I think they're historic, they're like shotgun houses or something, it's straight through. The one on the corner is going for sale any day, but it'd be interesting to see what they get.
Billy and Heather Thompson,
Yeah.
Billy. he used
oh, the
to
little
work
blue
for-
one?
The one in the
Right,
corner,
yeah,
yeah.
I know that one.
our
But
two.
yeah, I think, that's the bigger thing we're focusing on is like, how do we get 3 or 4 or 10 or 15 neighbors all together to come and say, let's do this whole block.
That'd be awesome.
And then the whole block is sort of
Protected.
protected, if you will, and able to work together to all kind of improve their homes. So, if you, like, that would be, then the nice thing about that is you can kind of develop your own guidelines that talk about what's appropriate in that area, as opposed to just defaulting to the citywide general guidelines, which is another nice thing. So if you do decide to go forward with this, I will help. And if you want to, you
Thanks.
can convince any of your neighbors to join as well. That would
We
be
might, I don't,
even
some of
better.
them look like they're brand new, but maybe they're just cited, like the corner house and.
Oh,
and-
yeah, it's just, that was built 18 something,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And then-
right, they're all old, yeah. We have one of the newer houses.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also think it's something eventually you could market, so to speak, come to Idaho Springs, see our historic homes,
Right.
not just stores and buildings, which are important to everybody, but you see that all over Main Street, which is great. We were just in Laramie this weekend and it was pretty cool, they're historic.
The goal is
People
eventually
like to
the-
see
the
that.
historic house tour around the holidays. That's what I
Yeah.
want. I want us to get to a point where we have enough historic houses that
That you-
it becomes a holiday walking tour.
Oh, wouldn't that be fun?
Small ones.
Yeah.
73 pages and stuff.
And you can get groups, like, I went to Lions Club, we do anything for you. you know.
That's what.
Oh, no, we're working with you guys on the playground.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sadly, we cleared around all the trees and got it all ready for the crew, and then they walked in with some Monsanto product or something and sprayed it all around the.
Oh, no.
Sorry, you just think, what are you doing to these children, you know, they're supposed to breathe, but they said the same.
So does the city have like a few paragraphs of stuff that are wording that, when they wanna do promotional type things, reasons to buy here, reasons to, build here, well, why are these developers, well, how do they know to show up? So yeah, just like some, background information as to, that would, like I said, extol the virtues of Idaho Springs.
Well, Visit Idaho Springs definitely extols the virtues. I think it's interesting. I talked to somebody that used to be on planning, like was on planning for years, and I was like, these codes that we have there's deliberate vagueness in it. And she said that when she was on planning, this is a couple of years ago, she said that we couldn't get people to come here. So we were trying to do things that were appealing for development and people to come here, because we had a different focus. Things were not, like right now, people want to come here. Prior to that, people were not interested, so planning was looking at how do we look more appealing.
Yeah.
And I think that's accurate if you look at some of the codes.
Yeah.
Right, but yeah, I think we do a lot of outward marketing and welcoming to visitors, overnight guests,
Sure,
day guests, potential residents, but there's not a whole lot that the city does to promote, like to kind of same welcome mat for developers. They've just kind of been stumbling upon Idaho Springs, I think.
Or the real estate agents are sort of.
But there's not, let's be honest, there's not a ton of spaces for development. I feel like we're almost busting at the seams.
But, right, I can't imagine Idaho Springs becoming significantly more dense than it already is, but I can think, when you look at kind of the whole I-70 corridor, the kind of the front yard of the city, I guess, that you see, there's a lot of opportunities for redevelopment of places over time as mobile homes age or as things just become more valuable and people want to rebuild things. So there might be change to the urban form without really seeing a significant increase in population or like total number of buildings.
Don't you think most developers put in, I just saw this on Tucker Carlson's 90, what is it, all these points he had? Stop building, I forget what the word he used was, to improve America. Stop building ugly new buildings, which are efficient, I says metallic, there are a lot of black and white square, right, around. But that kind of developing, I don't think people want around here, they're not too happy about that. Even though it'd be nice if it was affordable housing, but it totally steals the character of like, imagine that, what's at the end of Georgetown, in the middle of Georgetown. People wouldn't like, even though they're functional and they aren't ugly, but I just happened to stumble on a Tucker Carlson thing. And then he had some 9 points to improve America, and one of them was coincidentally stop the new developers that are so ugly. But that's just a side story, folks. And we will glad to return you to your peace and quiet here, and we'll pursue the next step ourselves.
No, just get in touch with Dylan because he'll walk you
Yeah,
through.
thanks, Dylan, and thank you all.
Yeah,
Like
thank
you
you
said,
for coming in. It was
yeah.
great to.
Mark, thank Mark,
Oh,
he's
this is
organized.
One question though, this helping to restore windows. What's, that seems like a pretty small part
Oh,
of
thanks.
just a whole building, granted.
I have a water concern on your garage too.
What's that,
You have some water damage on your garage that I'm worried about.
in the back alley?
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe, let's see. Let's have a look at that. Is it,
I think on the west.
yeah, is that on the east side next to our neighbor or down there? Do you guys know Candy next to me, Candace Costello?
Well, yeah, the middle part of the garage, I guess, at one point they got her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll
I mean, there might be
see what
stain and somebody spray painted, years
Yeah.
before we even moved.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's covered.
Yeah. So anyways,
Yeah,
we would definitely want to
need be
tend to
taken
that,
care of
yeah.
with, But yeah, our garage windows are original. The alley ones, we
Sadly.
recently painted them, so I mean, they're in pretty good shape, but the east and west ends, they're, yeah.
Mhm.
It's funny, on the drawings, they, have a window schedule, but, it's funny, all they do is say the dimensions of the sash. It has nothing to do with like the rough opening or the frame but it, like in the house, said the specific Anderson window casement units, which I'm assuming still make a similar one, if I wanted to have casements instead of double hungs. But, yeah. It'd be interesting to see if, I thought a couple of my garage windows were beyond repair. Okay. Well, I just saw half
No
today
hesitation
online,
there.
it's like, Bondo, okay, they make, stuff for, putty for cars. Well, they make, putty for wood too. So apparently, I guess you can make it look like, just, pristine. So who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for all your help and your interest. And this, we've been sitting on these forever, not thinking they were.
So I wrote our name and address
Give
and
this
my
to
phone
them.
number and email.
Is there anything else we can do for you?
No.
Anything you need?
So-
No, we are, trust me when I tell you, we are excited that you come in and you talk to us because this is one of our,
Yeah,
every one of us has this passion for how do we help.
I think Stevie would have come down, but she's at a meet, she's doing Singo for Tommy Knockers and.
She's at a meeting, Singo.
Yeah, she's
She has
earning
that
money, yeah, she's paid,
She has
yeah.
that large house in like.
You know the brown
Colorado.
one
The big round.
with the big dots in the
Yeah.
back, it's on Colorado Brown one, you probably
Yeah,
almost spaced it.
Yeah, it's from, so that's, I just talked to somebody who's over there working.
Yeah, I'd be good to see.
It's a lot of work.
And then the pink one on the corner.
Oh, God.
That one I was, but I think people, I do Meals on Wheels, and when I go through Georgetown, I take my time up and down every street as though I'm lost, just to look at the houses. I think people would enjoy doing that in Idaho Springs, not just see it as being modernized and convenience.
I agree with
So with gas stations.
You guys
and
are,
stuff.
sorry,
No, I'm fine.
you guys are the, what, the historical preservation? And is
Historic,
that,
yeah,
there's
historic
7 of
preservation
you,
review
or there's
commission.
more?
I
There-
just work for the city, but there is
Yeah.
7, and the
Okay.
7th is just not that, he's absent tonight.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
And then, of course, there's the Historical Society, which is like a nonprofit
Right,
that, so we're kind of different. This is like a city arm, I guess you
Sure.
could say, of historical
Yeah.
preservation, and Historical Society works closely with the city, but
Uh-huh.
they're their own.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
We've done a
And
lot.
the city has another historic board, which is just focusing on city-owned property, in which there's more than a dozen historic city buildings.
Wow, it's pretty cool walking down the street and stuff.
Well, we own the library. Not everybody knows that, but the city owns the library.
Wow.
So,
We're from Pittsburgh, we understand Carnegie
Oh,
well, more than
yeah.
we want to, yeah, but lucky,
Well, he was trying to redeem himself, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why all these libraries are built.
yeah. Which is good, because literacy
Yeah.
is mandatory, yeah. Anyway, but no, I think it's awesome, there used to be a little jail cell in there or something.
yeah, downstairs was the police.
Yeah, and I saw and even that little display in the back, it's shoved in the back corner towards the school end of that. I always think, get that out in the front.
They are pressed for space still.
I understand.
Like, they need all the space they can get.
Yeah, well, we all do, but we, again, for the 100th time, I thank you all immensely for your time on behalf of everybody, not just us, and giving of your time.
No,
To
we're
contribute.
excited. Come back, come talk to Dylan.
Yeah,
We'll-
wouldn't it
this
be
will
exciting? I'm
good.
not saying it'll happen, but we could restore it to its original look and we didn't, don't expect to ever see grass again like in those pictures, but.
But you were telling me the other night about the picket fence. That looks great with it, like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was trying to
Oh, yeah.
visualize that. That looks really good.
Well, I've always made the comment that, okay, it had white picket fence in it, and you probably didn't notice, but see, as an engineer, those pickets would be evenly spaced.
Yeah.
Well, this was designed by a government architect,
Yeah.
and it's like 2 and then 3, and then 2 and then 3, okay, as far as the spacing goes, like, that's not something that would come up in an engineer's mind.
And there were some surprise blueprints, we won't tell you now, they
Yeah.
revisit your.
So
I
Dylan,
think.
you have to email them and say, when can we come and tour too? Because all of us will be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Well, there's no haunted stories. We could make some up if you want to attract somebody, you know.
I tried to get copies, because I have the original like E-size drawings that when the house was built. I mean, so between the bill of materials and the drawings, I mean, you could build the house or the garage, okay, or, you know. And when we first moved here, I mean, I looked, you know, well, okay, eBay, okay, because, you know, oh, City of Idaho Springs, and you can find, you know, postcards that people were selling. And you think that I could not find any old pictures that, you know, like a postcard or anything like that.
Well, most of them were looking at Virginia Canyon Road, because I've also done
True,
that.
and we're 1939, those
Yeah.
might have been before.
I
that.
do have a couple old pictures, like, anyways, that, you know, if I had a magnifying glass, I mean, because, you know, I could
I have
see my
those.
house, okay? Because I know it's right across the street from the biggest building, which would have been the rec center.
Yeah.
Or it was a lumber mill or something there that burnt down, or,
It's in, well, there's a picture right in the lobby of
Yeah, the
the
picture
rec
of the lobby is
center.
of the.
That's where
yeah,
lumber mill
burning
way
down.
back in the day.
If you go on the Denver Public Library website, they'll let you zoom in on their photos, really.
Wow, that's an
Yeah.
interesting idea, yeah. So I'll ask one more time, if I might digress. That building, when you walk out the rec center looking east, what is that?
The big green.
Next to the vet? The green, between the vet and the rec center? Was, Rabbit said it was an old like, trolley
Train, something.
train something like,
And for a while there were apartments in it.
and now it's owned by
I think
the
it's
people
empty.
that own that fishing
One of
thing
the-
up there and the Sasquatch Casino, but I think her husband.
It's, we have this like survey work that was done in
Okay.
2022, and it says it's the former Straley Boiler Works, but
Wow.
I don't have any
Huh,
more info on
yeah,
that off the
interesting.
top of my
Cause when you
head.
look in the window, it's kind of cool looking, spooky.
It says it was built in 1890-ish,
Wow,
so
yeah,
that's,
Like a power plant sort of thing, or?
Boiler Works feels very generic.
Right,
I
yeah, it could be
suppose,
that.
I mean, we're working on like boilers on train engine.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something like
right.
that. I'm not sure, I'm gonna look into it a little bit more now that I have.
Yeah.
Probably on the school board maps.
we were told that the family that owns Sasquatch and Casino either bought it or held on to it at the time, thinking that gambling was coming to our town. And it, well, thank goodness it didn't, but nonetheless, that might have been one of the, that has nothing to do with this history, it's just it was applicable.
Right, I'm sure that would be a good one to be
Yeah,
on a
because the
historic
husband died and the
designation,
woman and the kids, I never met him, I just know when he died, it was mentioned that she still owned it with the family. And they have that fishing hole up there, they put all those nice.
Isn't that the one
That's what I was
that
but-
just
told.
at the,
CJ, she just joined the.
CJ just joined the
business
business promotion,
promotions.
yeah, that's her
Yeah.
family.
You could ask them, because that's what I gather, but no for a fact.
I know back in the day, this was probably 2021, 2022. I think Jonathan Kane talked to the owner of that. He was they were interested in like, they would have done a swap or
Hmm.
like, there was some interest in swapping, but the city didn't have anything equitable, which is understandable. That's a pretty substantial building.
Yeah, and it's one of those examples of something that could be on the local register, but if the
Right.
owners aren't interested, we can't force them to.
They might not even know, they know it's old, but not know this.
That's why it's exciting that you guys come to us, because we can't do this. It has to come from the property owner. It cannot come from the city. We can't force, a change on you of your
Oh.
zoning or like your.
And bless your hearts, yeah,
Yeah.
because,
Well, that's not appropriate.
yeah,
I mean, as much as we might like to,
yeah,
it is not appropriate.
okay.
Well,
We
thank
can
you
chat
very
away
much.
with you, we'll have to have you come over, and we'll socialize, we'll be fun, seeing
I have
everybody.
to look into.
And don't ever be afraid to knock,
Window stuff.
yeah,
I'll
come in the
email you.
back door.
Okay.
You come, yeah,
Great.
but knock on the back door, we hardly ever hear anybody in the front, but.
No worries.
Yeah, we'll give you a tour. It's a fun place. Nothing is like these things you see, these homes that are amazing. We used to have one in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's a shame when they built, okay, so our garage, okay, it's big, but the 5 doors, so there's, anyways, there's a brick wall and a brick wall inside, and it's like 46 feet in between, and there's no poles in there.
Yeah, it's a massive
Okay,
room.
because it would have been great to have pictures of, but anyway, there's an 18-inch beam that spans 45
Oh, wow.
plus feet that had to have been delivered in 1939, how would it have come? I don't, on
Trains,
trains or,
yeah.
was there, well, yeah, because there used to be trains that went through town.
That was
The
around
train was
end of-
gone,
that was
I
around
think
the
the
end
train
of
was
the
gone
train.
before
It was
1940.
41,
You
I
know,
think was the
uh,
end.
It either came on a big tractor trailer or I figure it was delivered on a train. But then even to move it a couple blocks and put it in our garage, it's pretty amazing that they did that. Yeah. So.
Well,
Okay.
thanks, I'm
Yep.
excited, I'm sure you take a lot of
Thanks a
pride in
lot.
what you do for your community.
We do,
We're
we
grateful.
absolutely do.
Yep. and
Okay,
Bill and I will look up
enjoy.
this stuff here.
Yeah, thanks for your
Sure,
extra
yeah.
effort,
Investigate
putting that
this.
out.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
everybody,
you, guys.
I brought an umbrella so it will not rain.
I've got my raincoat.
And we need it, so we don't complain. Thanks, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you,
Have a good
guys.
night.
That, another sort of theme of Idaho Springs history is the CCC involvement, that camp that was here and did a lot of work, I guess. Or,
It's cool. Well, the New Deal properties. I didn't realize that was.
I sent you the notice from the
Yes.
NAPC on that Zoom call next Friday.
I'll forward it out, to everyone else, yeah, section 106 under threat, what these proposed changes mean for preservation at the local level. Welcome to sign off.
Good.
No. So what else did you, what else did you want, was there something else you wanted to discuss as far as further direction?
Can we update the code? So you don't need 100% owner approval for historic district?
Yeah. Or would that be too much?
Carmen was kind of getting twitchy about the buffer zone, I don't know.
Well, but that's, I mean, so like, basically put a code amendment in that says, if you want to create a new district, it only needs X% of people within the district.
As one who lives in a place that I really would like to get locally designated, it would be hard to get a hold of some of the owners because some of those places are rented out. Not all of them, but a couple would probably be hard to get a hold of.
But although the assessor lists the owners in the assessor's records.
I could
as
find
to-
it.
And they also include an address. I don't think they have phone numbers, but they have addresses for the owner.
Not necessarily that.
But someone's paying their property taxes.
Right,
So do you have, examples of, like, is this a pretty common thing?
Yeah, the model ordinance that I think is on District Colorado website has the language in there, and I.
All the voting
said that I think it's 70%. But there's a pretty lengthy discussion about what percentage. But yeah, they have the language.
Steamboat Springs spent years getting enough property owners to agree, so they actually haven't had a historic district that long. Just because there wasn't enough property owner support. So you might be able to contact them since they went through the process over many years.
Do you know, were they, like, did they eventually get unanimous support, or was it
I
just?
don't,
like a
I don't know
certain-
how they eventually got it, I just know from going to conferences, they kept saying, no, we still don't have a district.
Well, Lisa, you missed, I think the model guideline, the model ordinance has guidance on 70% property owners in a potential district need to be on board in order for, so then in that case, I guess the other 30% are just forced into it, basically. And then I guess as part of that process, they're determined whether they're contributing or not contributing, and
It's sort of two things you have to do. One is basically an evaluation of the sort of the contributing buildings in terms of, it doesn't actually say this, but it's implied. You need to have at least 51% of the buildings
Yes.
need to be considered as contributing. usually you're trying for much higher than that, but there's sort of an understanding you need to have more than half.
But our code.
But then you
doesn't
can draw the
specify that.
boundaries many different ways in order to achieve that.
Right. Right,
Currently, it doesn't specify what percentage be contributed.
right, and I guess then also it doesn't specify the percent, like, I guess it doesn't matter if you are agreeable to it or not, if you're contributing, you're contributing.
And it's also the difference between if you're talking about national register or local,
Right,
because you would have different standards that way. There's actually there used to be a publication, sort of provided advice on how to draw boundaries for a historic district.
well, that's helpful, because when we were talking to Jada, on. This is
Up
Wall
behind the
Street,
Habitat.
behind Habitat, like, obviously the Habitat buildings would all be non-contributing. But bridging the gap to
Yeah,
the Elks, then spreading out from there, you'd still be able to get at least 51% presumably.
I've
Contribute.
actually been talking to people on West Side Wall Street, and they seem to be somewhat interested, and since they came together so that the city could actually work with them and fix their street, because there was a lot of legal ownership issues around fixing their street, they may be a good candidate, but I've actually talked to a lot of people in Sunnyside. And what did it, because that's where Dylan lives, in Sunnyside, what did it is that building down on, Riverside, you know the one I'm talking about, plaster and big wood beams, and it's this big aspen looking house.
No,
And
it
people
really sticks out
are,
like a sore thumb.
people are angry, they're like, why did this happen? And I said, you guys aren't a historic district, what are we supposed to do? It's
Right.
their property. And then they look at me and I say, there is a solution where we can help you, but you guys have to. So I've heard from probably over the last month, 4 different property owners in Sunnyside, not Dylan. Yeah, Dylan's not one of them.
I
That would
would,
be funny if Dylan proposed it.
I would certainly designate my house. I've not done any grassroots outreach of the neighborhood though, to date. Maybe I should.
Well, right along Wall Street, there are some super cool houses, there are just some really, that they haven't done much with, mostly because you can't get anything up there to do anything with it.
Right.
I won't drive it.
Well, I used to live up there and I can't even talk about how people could not get up there. So I think our Wall Street people, and Sunnyside, because even that Virginia, which is part of Sunnyside, 2 of the people that I talked to live on Virginia.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot of, and Virginia is a good example of the west end of Virginia there, Virginia and Placer, I guess, where the Zion Lutheran Church and the castle, the host house, it's like you already have 2 contributing buildings. The castle's not designated.
I was gonna say,
but-
the
That's
castle,
surprising,
well, so the
But-
castle's privately owned,
right?
and it's going to the Historic Society when the caretaker is no longer there, because he's got right of lifetime tenancy.
Right, yeah, talking to the Historical Society, they will definitely plan to have it designated, so.
Maybe we ask them then. Because is it Bill that's living there?
Charlie.
Charlie, he's done a lot of work towards preservation too, he's very focused on,
Right,
preserving this place.
but yeah, having those 3 right on that corner would really make it easy to spread across the whole.
There's a lot of great
Especially if you don't need 100%. Whatever you decide.
I don't think either that we would have a huge push, but we have a little pushback, I think, on council. A little. Enough to carry the day.
Well, the council makeup is changing quite a lot and will continue to change over the next month or 2, so.
70% of the property owners want a historic district, but the council have a problem.
There are people on the council, and I 100% get this, who would say, what about the 30% who don't? I think if we do this, the way that, because I also know from dealing with the attorney and arguing about a buffer zone, do you give the people who do not agree with it a little bit of an out? No? Okay, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
No, I mean, there's legal precedent for it. There's legal precedent to have 51% of property owners agree and have extremely strict design guidelines. Not that we should or would do that, but
Right, but the fact of the matter is, we could alternatively, as a city, say, we're just going to create really strong regulations across the entire city. It doesn't matter if you're in a historic district or not, we're gonna essentially make the entire city a historic district just through really strict.
I was finding that too.
And there's a number of mountain towns that have done it, but basically, the south half of Georgetown is basically historic.
Yeah.
But the entire town is under design review.
Right.
So all the way to the north end, you still have to get approval from the Design Review Commission for most projects.
Right, so that lends the, like, city would be well within its rights to be very heavy-handed citywide. And so then to that end, for city council, if 70% of people say we want a local historic district, why?
Tough noogies
Why
for
would we-
30%.
And we've talked before about whether it's design guidelines or zoning standards, you don't have to do everything at once, but you could begin to put certain zoning standards into place that are some of the main things that you want to protect.
Right.
And one of the basic things, and some of it's already protected, but things like the height of the building, the bulk or size of the building. There are other things like that you can do. And then say if you want to go to a further step, for example, if someone's going to build a new house or renovate a house, for example, a requirement that there be a front porch. It's sort of, there's different types of standards you could look at doing, but again, you don't have to do everything at once.
Well, because that's something that I've started the discussion with at the last planning commission meeting, was to say, are you interested in strengthening architectural standards? And I think it's an overwhelming yes. And we heard it from 70 people in the room a couple of nights. But I think what that means to different people in that room or elsewhere means quite a lot of difference across the city. And I don't think there's a significant amount of experience in this particular subject on any board, but probably this one. And so it's a bit outside of the scope of HPRC to say, like, let's consult on updating the code with respect to architectural design. But if you all are willing to have that back as a work session, I'd be happy to.
And one of the aspects of the code is to look at, for example, broadening the purpose of this board. Because its purpose is actually pretty narrowly defined.
Right.
There's a logic to this board being providing advice to city council regarding historic, and it doesn't even say that.
Right, well, exactly. It's basically just review COA applications.
Yeah, that's pretty much our whole goal. But I think that's a worthwhile conversation worth having. I mean, I keep coming back to what that former planning commission member told me, that 20 years ago, they were trying to bring people in. And now, we're not quite beating them off with a stick, but there's a lot of interest. I think it's okay for us to say we need to be more careful in how we let development go forward.
Yeah, I don't think the goal is to like keep anyone out. Like, that's where you have to be careful. Because I definitely hear this sentiment at the moment being like, well, we're happy with what Idaho Springs is now, and we don't want it to change at all, and let's make the rules such that it can't change.
Yeah, I don't,
And that's not what we want, but
In some of the common zoning rules that other places have adopted, one is that any new house or any addition to a house cannot be more than 10% of the average height of all the houses on the block. And the same thing is done with the size of the building. The square footage can be no more than a certain percentage bigger than the average of the block.
yeah, I think you might have mentioned that before, because I presented that to city council, and they were like, or planning commission. Well, that's a really interesting idea, and we like it, even though we don't fully understand it, I think, right? Because they're like, okay, well, over time, then we're gonna have to like measure. They're gonna have to do a study that measures the height of all the buildings, and then that's gonna change each.
Yeah,
New
basically,
application comes.
every time someone wants to do something, you would need to go back and check. There's simpler ways of doing that. The expensive way, and this is the way Telluride worked with where I was there for almost a decade, is basically you hired a surveyor and they went out and measured with the field instruments, the height of every building. But for example, there are hand devices you can buy from Home Depot that are pretty accurate in terms of you can point it at the building and it'll give you pretty accurate number on what the height of the building is.
Right. Yeah, honestly, these days, it's not super accurate, but like my iPhone has a measure app and like it allows you to, if you're standing right next to it, you can measure the building and it's within probably 10%. Not for a skyscraper, like on a smaller scale.
And that's where you can define, these are acceptable methods for determining average height. You basically provide that information and say if you wanted it to be a phone application, you could say, so you could list phone applications that are acceptable for using
Right.
to determine height of buildings.
But is there, I mean, because realistically, we just don't have that many opportunities for development anyway, unless we demolish a house.
Right.
Does anyone feel like there's an appetite in town for people to protect the buildings we have, or are they only worried about?
I saw a Facebook comment to the effect of, can we get Carlson listed as a historic?
So they want someone else's property listed, but not theirs.
One thing you have to look at is at a certain point, if the market heats up, do people want to start putting big additions on houses or even starting to tear houses down?
Well, on your block, there was the one addition that just occurred. I think it's your block.
It's like in the back,
Right,
so
they
you can't
like
see it all
added,
from the front.
they added a full like room basically to the back of this
Yeah,
house that was
it was
maybe in
huge.
the early 1900s home, and it's quite a large addition. They probably increased the size of that house by 30%, but you can't really tell from the street.
No, the facades remain intact. They've done a really good job.
I was just gonna ask, did they do, if you look at it aesthetically, does it look like they did a good job blending?
Well, it's completely in the back, so if you're on the street looking at it, you can't hardly see it unless you're like really like peeking around.
Like,
Like,
I think I only saw it when they didn't have the siding on yet, so it's easier to
But they
see.
did match the siding. I don't know
yeah,
if
they took
it's
pains to do that and match the color and stuff.
in the roof line.
And that's also one of the rules of thumb about if you can't see it from the street, it
Right.
makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But that is a good question. Does the city care about protecting existing buildings? Or is the city only interested in making sure new development fits with what's there already? Like
think both.
basically, do we care if a house is knocked down as long as what replaces it is acceptable?
I would go with Shannon and say both, like, if you're gonna tell me, if Erica says I'm gonna knock my house down, she's gotta go through permits for that, correct?
Yeah, there's a simple demolition permit.
How about if these people wanted to knock, they've got a lot of room on that block, there's a.
That house, that whole property was,
Yeah, they
So-
could, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, nothing
They
stopping.
could probably have a
That's-
5,000 square foot house right there in the middle. of
or
the city.
two, right, cause they subdivided the,
you
Sure,
could squeeze
certainly,
three skinnies in
probably
there.
three, yeah.
would that be a
You know,
problem in this town if they did that.
but
Yeah. Well, and I just worry about like people like my neighbors, and they've owned their houses for 20 and 30 years, they grew up in town. I'm not sure they care. Like, yeah, they don't want town to change, but I don't think they would ever want their property to be restricted in any way.
right, but then, yeah, you wanna restrict other people, but then you say, okay, well, if it's a 40-year-old mobile home on the site, do you care what it replaces as long as it's like looks nicer than it does now, you know, that's the other question, because I heard from some neighbors of one of the mobile home parks on Howard Boulevard, they're like, we should really get a whole district together and include the mobile home park in the historic district so that we can sort of control what goes in there. And, you know, my question was, well, wouldn't any new building, even if it's 8 townhomes, like, isn't that gonna be an improvement over a few mobile homes that are not always well cared for? And they're like, well, maybe, but then once it's there, it's there for the long haul.
The state's sort of going to some lengths to sort of try and protect mobile home parks.
Right, but we have quite a lot of, I'd say pretty much everything along Colorado Boulevard on the west end, it's just single family lots that have mobile homes on them. But they're all just single family lots, and so I don't know if that would be protected under the state's mobile home park.
They're not
So-
listed in the database
Because
as
they're-
mobile home parks.
No,
This is
but I
not
think there's
actually
something in terms of modular construction, the state also has adopted regulations to make it easier to what's called modular.
Yeah,
And if they said, we're gonna get rid of the mobile home and put a tiny house here, is that better? Is that worse? I mean, I like tiny houses, so it doesn't bother me in the
Right.
slightest. But maybe Erica doesn't like tiny
Sure.
houses and thinks, oh, God.
or they say we're gonna keep the footprint and make it 3 stories like a row house with a 3-level single family home, but it's only 20 feet wide.
Like that biggest modular one I was showing you. Oh my God, the other day.
And a lot of tiny houses are not that much smaller than historic houses.
No, it,
It's true.
listen,
Narrows it down.
I will never, with Jonathan and I, a long time ago, talked about the one down on 2800. And he was like, I would love to just, those and just make it a tiny, which would be fantastic. Same footprint.
Mhm. Right, and that's the thing is, unless we own it, we don't really get to control it, like, that might be the perfect thing to do, but what if someone instead buys it and says, I wanna do a 35-foot tall, just apartments? And I think some people would be fine with that, maybe everyone would, but it's different, like, we don't get to control it, so should there be more regulation that says, well, we can't say what you're gonna do, but we're gonna say what it looks like.
The thing though, and this was interesting, and I've been thinking about this because I actually talked to some of the people who have done work in trying to make mobile homes in this county co-op owned. Is there is a view shed, you live, like with a mobile home, they live there in front of you, they're a 1-story
Right.
structure. So yes, maybe you're looking at mobile homes, but you also don't have 3-story homes that are in your view shed out the front door. You know, you plant enough trees, you don't even see that, so
Right.
there's
They can
something,
build a block I-70 all they want about that.
But that's true, we don't really have like view shed protection requirements.
but I've heard that a lot, though, people say when they come in, like the person said that in the meeting, but I've actually heard that from 2 other different people who said, I live in Sunnyside, if you ruin that view shed, like when you come down the highway, you see Sunnyside.
Right,
If we ruin the view of Sunnyside, and also the west side of Wall Street. If you ruin those views, you ruin what you see on from Idaho Springs, as you're coming down 70, that is appealing to people. Which is something I didn't think about, but I don't think it's inaccurate.
No, but you also see those horrible trailers.
And you
And a
also
lot of
see
people-
like the back of Minor Street. I mean, I always thought Idaho Springs looked a little trash for my city.
Still looks a little trashy.
Which I liked, but
I've heard
I'm
people,
not sure is
I've
everyone.
heard people comment that they didn't know there were really nice houses in Idaho
Yeah, people are
Springs.
surprised,
Because
yeah.
all you
Oh,
see
wow.
is the trashy.
Yeah.
I think with the sidewalks went in Colorado, that made a big difference in terms of how, from out of town, how you perceive the city.
But still from the highway, it looks like crap.
Yeah.
There's that one that's pink, that's got all those
The
signs
pink
on it.
bus,
Oh,
the
yeah.
pink bus. Yep, we
It's for
have.
sale, could be yours.
Yeah, I'm jumping right on that
I
one.
heard they have their own well.
so.
What?
I heard you like pink.
That might be worth it.
You like
just to
pink,
have
not that
well.
one.
That kind of thing.
I would- So certainly this will come to city council as kind of like a broader policy discussion, right? Because ultimately, I think just make sweeping changes without some trying to say, let's make these sweeping.
City
changes.
council would be on you like a cheap date if you tried that.
So I think it would probably be supported at the moment if it's making stricter architectural design and character.
Like I said, I think we have till the end of the year to be on this train and get something done. That's my supposition just from people I've talked to. They're still kind of hot about it.
Oh, the outrage is fresh.
While the outrage is fresh.
Has the plan update been adopted yet?
Not quite, I keep getting
Because I
pushed
mean,
back.
in terms of if we're thinking about changes, that's the place to suggest something, and then it's a matter of just planning commission support these ideas. Because if you put it in the plan, it takes you halfway to a regulation.
Isn't it in there? Is there? I mean,
To an
vaguely,
extent, right, like it's more vague than like, we're going to make it. This or that, but like, I think one of the things that I tried to make much stronger in there is this idea of character being like what defines Idaho Springs and people defining Idaho Springs rather than like downtown doesn't define Idaho Springs, right? It's like all the residents who make up the town. So I think we have the go ahead to do some of this stuff, that I get strong enough in there with the new goals, but we still want to make sure that something city council wants us to spend significant time on, right? Same with like park regulations.
Okay, parking stuff. Ever.
Well, I've heard.
10 years.
well, every resident has 5 cars, don't you know?
Every single.
Okay, wait,
Every single one.
I actually have lived near some of the 6 and 7 car residents. And I went from one house where he had 6, and I'm at the house now where there's like 4 to 5, it depends. I think one's just a visitor. And I'm like, how did I move from the 6-car house to the 5-car neighbor? I got that neighbor.
I'm one of those too.
I bet you do.
Anyway, I think, like, I'm quite happy that they came tonight because this is the perfect opportunity to get another local designated residence. I'm curious, and maybe this is a topic for next time, of how do we get this momentum really going in earnest? Like, what's the,
So I'm gonna say it. I think that if we do this, because I know I have talked to Drew. Drew is willing, like, she's really interested in how do we help update codes. There is interest, I know Facebook is, Facebook, but this is how a lot of the awareness came about of the recent project submission.
Would she designate her house?
Would she designate her house? I think she would.
one of her like weird.
Got 4 or 5.
That's because that is the thing, like, there are quite a lot of.
I didn't ask her that, I'm gonna ask her.
landlords in the town as well, and it's like, do they wanna designate their multiple properties and then have to deal with more restrictions?
Well, I think with Drew, if she's gonna preach it, she has to do it. You can't tell people they need to designate the house if they're not willing to do it wrong. And so even in my job, you have to offer somebody something that benefits them. So what is the benefit? Now we're gonna do all these strict rules on them? What's the benefit for doing it? What do I get out of it? People nowadays, it's all about me. What's in it for me?
Well, but it also, in all fairness, there has to be an equitable trade. If you're willing to take on greater restrictions, I gotta slide something across the table that's worth it to you to take it on the extra hassle.
Yeah.
Another aspect of it is,
There's gotta be-
if you change the regulations, you sort of need to evaluate how will this affect a property.
Mhm.
And sort of, and having done this for a lot of years, one of the things is that one of the difficult issues to deal with is, can I still put an addition on my house? Because that's one of the most dramatic changes someone wants to do. So you sort of look at if you're gonna propose the regulations, okay, how does this affect what I can and cannot do on my property?
Like, is it okay to have like my neighbor putting another outbuilding in back or that sort of extension that we were talking about? Would those be okay? I say yes, because you can't see those from the road. This is the side that's most important.
But also, if one of our carrot is tax credits, let's make it streamlined for people. Here's how you apply for tax credits.
I don't,
Say it, girl.
the tax credits are good. I don't think most people in Idaho Springs would be willing to go through the trouble to get them.
Well, that's why, and there's no way to make these simpler. Okay.
Right, and if you're doing something small, like window rehabilitation, it's like, if you aren't doing a major project, you're never qualified.
Yeah, I know. I did that in my taxes and I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
It didn't care.
So that seems like the carrot that's not quite tasty enough, right?
It's an old carrot.
So like,
no,
so
Radish.
it feels to me that the carrot is, hey, if you designate and you get all of your neighbors to designate, then your neighborhood's not gonna change.
Right, as an argument, I used the field house apartments. I was talking to one neighbor, it's like, what would you think about making this stretch of houses a historic district? And it's like, oh, yeah, I know, and I threw in, hey, somebody, since we're multifamily zoned, could buy one of those houses, knock it down and put something like the field house apartments there, and that's not appealing to people.
And having worked in a place that is very heavily regulated, there's sort of two attitudes. One is I don't want restrictions on my house, but I would really like restrictions on all my neighbors' houses.
But your point is really good too. Can I make an addition to my house? If it, like, how do we overcome that objection before it even comes up? Well, you can do an addition and here's how you do it. And you present this framework of how people can do what they want to do and not feel hemmed in. Even though they are.
And that's where
You
part
don't
of
let
the
'em know
process, you need to sort of take several properties and analyze, okay, if this regulation were passed, how does it affect what I could do on this piece of property?
Yeah, that needs to be clear, because I'm sure that will come up as
And
questions.
you need to be able to show that to people. Say, okay, yeah, it can be made to work and here's how.
This
Yeah.
means if we end up doing this, everybody puts their house up for like discussion, like Erica, here's what you can do on your property. Lisa, here's what you can do on your property. You know, Shannon, here's what you can do. Dylan, here's what we can do on yours. Well,
Right,
because I don't wanna put I don't wanna put somebody on, blast, but if you need to see
yeah,
concrete examples, here are houses in town where I could do what I wanted
Or
to
a
do.
neighborhood with a few examples, something like that.
yeah,
Yes.
can you add a second story
And just-
on the back of your house? How do I keep my windows nice when I can't just throw in new vinyl windows, I think like multiple people, when we did that Oates House window rehabilitation workshop, multiple people came out of that saying, I don't have to buy new windows, this is great.
Right,
Yeah, it just never occurred to people.
yeah, people who don't like the idea of regulation just say, well, yeah, you can say I can do that. But how about the commission who's gonna be sitting in those chairs when I bring the paper in and have to get it approved? There's no guarantee that it's gonna.
But if it's
go
law,
right.
it doesn't mean, it's our regulation that you are able to do this, these things.
Right, I will say the thing I get.
But you're right.
It's, yeah, I've seen it.
Well,
So
it's
many people
only-
that just don't trust, it's government, I don't
Yeah.
want
And
it.
it's only as strong as the city's willing to defend it. I mean,
Right.
that's why Breckenridge is the way it is. Cause they would rather have the money and they know that some of these big companies that come in and wanna do stuff can just sue the city and get whatever they want.
Right.
And but I don't think Idaho Springs is in a position to fight that either, so. Well,
Right, I would say like something that I get into fights with people a lot about though, which gets to your point a bit, is like, they say, well, I want this thing, and I say, well, you can't do that, but if you just change it in these kind of subtle ways, you can do it. And it's 75% of exactly what you want, and they want 100% of what they want. So it's true if you say, well, you, now that you're in this district, you have more standards on what sort of shed you can put in the backyard or something, for example. You have to have certain aesthetic treatment. Oh, I just want this cheap Rubbermaid shed, why can't I do? I mean, maybe a shed's not a good example, I don't know,
It's that kind of thing, it's. Yeah. So then it's just neighbors talking to one another and saying, well, we're gonna get something good out of this.
I'll tell you something though, if we just get, I'd say 5 people who are chit chatty in town, designate their houses, that is gonna go a longer way than almost anything we can do.
Well, especially if we then give them a plaque. And it says like, something they can really promote at their house.
And show off. People like to show off stuff.
I got. I did.
And that's good, but it's the district where you get real protection for the area.
I think that's the thing, is the district's the way to do it, but it feels daunting. To get all these people together to actually be willing to do it, even if it's 70%.
yeah, I don't know.
And the other way is that we discussed is you do it through a zoning amendment. And it's a matter of being going at it in an incremental way. You don't ask for everything, but sort of what's the one or two most important things to do. And it was like the example I gave of the average height of your block, average size building on your block.
Right? And then do you apply that across the whole city or just certain, like, that's the thing I struggle with, because like the East End is the perfect example of, well, the average height of those buildings is not very tall right now, but there's so much potential for redevelopment, you know, a one-story gas station. We say, well, you can't build a two-story thing because you're next to this gas station from 1964 that hasn't been used in the last decade. I think that really limits someone's
Not really being
potential.
specific or anything.
It really limits that potential of that commercial space and.
Well, and that maybe is where you're distinguishing between residential and commercial.
Right.
And the other aspect of it is, that it has already been discussed, is that views are kind of important to people in terms of what you can see, or whether it's from your house or from the highway or somewhere else. And as we build up, the views slowly disappear.
Well, not being able to see the Idaho from the highway would be, I think that would be a problem.
I do too.
And aren't there enough examples of things that have stuck in people's craw in town here over the last 5 or 10 years?
Maybe besides parking.
And besides parking, no, just, no, some of the new,
The field house, people are
developments.
gonna dine out about the field house.
Yeah.
And height is one of the issues there, because of the way that we do height.
But it would be an issue if it was 35 too, like a few feet here, like if they were all one story shorter, people would be a lot less angry.
So then the question, do you want that to happen again in this town, and again, and again, and again? Or is there a way to
Well,
preserve the district?
and that is the funny thing about Breckenridge, and why I asked you about it when you said that people are asking about, why don't we be more like Breckenridge? Breckenridge has so many tall buildings. Like, yeah, there's a few blocks with the
Well, they were
historic
saying,
homes that
the
are
person
2+
that mentioned it,
million.
because I was kind of surprised, I was like, but you know. And they were like, just everything has a similar look. That's what, like, there was
Right.
continuity.
But I feel like they're mostly talking about the historic district, right? They're
Where
not
the real
talking
estate
about,
offices are.
because like everything on north of Airport Road is these huge like condo hotels. And they're like, some of them are really tall and they look like a ski chalet or whatever. And that could be here outside of the historic district. Like, we'll have the same scale in the historic district, but if we don't get more districts, we could look like Vale or Breckenridge or whatever.
Districts in whole. Dylan knows I've only been singing this song for years. So does Patty, she's been on me with, we've
Well,
been on this together for years.
Would it be worth relooking at this area to the east that has the higher height limit?
yeah,
In other words, when I was on staff, it struck me as seemed higher than was necessary.
well, this is what I've been kind of saying recently, because I think coming out of Carlson, everyone's like, we need to focus on this buffer, it's 2 blocks. Like, if we allow 10 buildings over there at 50 feet tall, that's gonna have a pretty big impact. And that those passed without too much controversy back in 2018, 2019. But nothing has happened that's pushed that envelope, and I just fear that when someone does inevitably propose that building, like, it's gonna become this really big political issue, even though they meet the zone.
It's that spots next to Conrad's and Bill Daddy's. Those are the two big areas where you could really do something.
But also like Eric's and the little log cabin next to it, that's owned by the same person, they could easily do that. There's a couple of old motels that inevitably will be redeveloped sooner rather than later. I think there's probably actually 5 or 6 development sites down there that might change in the next 5 years.
Does this give you some direction about where to head?
I think I certainly have direction from HPRC on where we wanna go. It's like the actually developing standards that planning commission and council, like, that are clear and understandable for get it, is the bigger challenge.
I know there's at least 3 people on council who are very interested in this. I can't speak for the other 4.
Right, it's just, I think, like, what it comes down to me, for me, is it a. How heavy-handed do we wanna be, and how wide a net do we wanna cast?
I think talking to council and planning with that exact question is
Right.
because this group would be like, no, it can be heavy-handed, we're okay with that.
Yeah, right, and I think when I was talking to the planning commission, they were kind of like. Unsure, they hadn't been asked, what if we just reduce the height limit around 10 to 25 feet? We've never thought about that, or like, I kind of brought up a similar to Mike's thing, like, what if there is an averaging where you can't go more than 10% higher or bigger in like a 100-foot radius or something?
I was thinking like within a block radius, like you should be.
The idea is to
block.
be your side of the street for one block,
Yeah,
the block that you're sitting on, that you're comparing it to your immediate neighbors' houses. And the idea behind it is we don't want radical change, but change is still possible.
Right.
But you could run into something, I mean, slowly over time, that could just increase the height of everybody if they all got.
And that's probably okay, because in the end, you run into, there's a 35-foot height limit, so you're not gonna get past that.
Right, and I suppose if over a 50-year period, we end up at 35 feet, that would be quite a lot of the developments.
I mean, one of the things about the 35-foot height, that many cities in the country have it, is part of it is that your mature trees typically will get above 35 feet. So what you have is, at least in the summertime, you have a green appearance instead of a building appearance. And that's one of the reasons why 35 feet has been used so widely, is because the trees will grow slightly higher than that.
But it is interesting, like I've looked at about 25 different cities. Their height requirements and their parking requirements. Parking specifically for this one. I've looked at their tables for like 25 different cities that are under 10,000 people around the Rockies of Colorado. And it's so funny how similar they all are. And it's like one person must have passed it at this amount, and then like 50 other communities just followed suit for some reason.
There were model codes written in 1972 and 73.
Right.
And almost all the small towns in the state adopted them. Some of them still are using those codes from 50 years ago.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be, some of our parking requirements probably are from that, but we haven't become more car reliant since then, and our population hasn't changed, so I'd be curious. It'll be interesting to see what comes of parking, that's certainly outside the scope of this.
now we have a study going on to like get us a trolley.
Right.
Like, we get that trolley, I swear, I wanna be at the ribbon cutting. We're gonna get one.
We should get all the ribbon cutting, as a esteemed council member.
I'm trying, it doesn't always work that way.
Well, I mean, this is a great conversation. We've been talking about it for a long time. Like Lisa said early on in this meeting, there was a tepid response at the beginning of this year, because this conversation dates back about a year ago. And I just didn't get like clear direction, let's do it then. And so now let's do it now. Yes.
4 months, guys.
Someone
that's
will
what we got.
designate the school if everyone else agrees to be designated.
Well, that's.
We'll convince them.
Yeah, they,
Well,
I've been
I
trying
guess
that one
If
for
you had like
5 years.
70% though in the district, and you said, we're gonna expand the historic district 10 blocks west. We just need 70% of the population to agree.
Yeah, and that'll be in it, yeah.
They only get one vote.
yeah, they only did.
There was an historic district that was created in Connecticut, I remember that, where they city town selectmen who wanted the historic district said, we've got to draw in this high-rise condo building, because all the property owners in their condos will get to vote, and they're voting on their view. So the district, and it, made some sense in terms of the continuity of the district, they did. And it seemed to me goofy at the time in terms of an historic district boundary, but from a political point of view, it made a lot of sense.
Right. And
It's
all
still
those,
there.
and they were all like, supportive, I
Yeah,
guess.
they were all supportive, it was somebody else's property, it was gonna be regulated.
And not, but it's a view, they didn't,
It was the
it's
view.
not gonna change their view.
Right,
They're already in a condo, so what do they care?
right, yeah,
Very interesting.
that was part of my education.
That is interesting. So does this give you some direction? Do we have something, anything else that we need to give to Dylan?
No, one other thing that I will just mention and then we can wrap up is where the bridge just out there, Mike and I have been, it was really Mike, but it is officially part of the historic district and it is city owned. So we're going to plan to add it to the sites and facilities.
It was in the National Register nomination.
Okay,
And it is its own actual, like, on the register, it like comes up as its own
As,
thing.
as is the log cabin building. And I'm just wondering, was that a matter of the property owner didn't want to be in the city's district when it was created? As to why they were left out?
Maybe not.
I know those owners, if you would like to move them in, maybe we talk to them.
They're in the nomination.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll have another city-owned historic site, which.
Sweet.
Any interest in squawking about the 106 regulations?
Yes. I say, but I'm more
I'm
not.
not opposed to it.
Yeah.
What's that for? Like, I recognize, okay.
I sent out the webinar link that Clark sent me. I'll plan to attend.
Yeah, I'm good, okay.
I don't know if I can, but just, I don't know if I can, but I will try. I'm
That's-
usually home Friday, so I should be able to.
It's noon and on.
Next Friday? 28?
Saturday, what?
Let me have a look.
What do we got it there? Yeah, what's this one? I can't,
Thursday, August 27th at 1 p.m.
Oh,
Eastern time,
Eastern time, so
11
11 a.m.
PM.
11
11
a.m.
AM.
27th.
A number of organizations have prepared sample letters for mailing to two senators and the members of Congress. Like I did that through AIA, took and modified the 3 letters and sent them in by email to the elected officials.
Do we want to do an official statement as a commission?
We are certified local government, so it can come from CLG.
We don't have to go through council to make this statement, do we?
It's not.
It'd be nice if they,
it'd be nice
knew.
I don't think it would be a particularly controversial thing if we said, hey, here's this thing. Here's like, let's.
We don't wanna
send it
lose our local input in
Yeah,
this review process.
and so then it could be on behalf of the chair of the HPRC. Or it
What
could be
if-
the mayor signed it.
What if you were to draft a letter for the chair and then take that to council work session next week?
Would you all trust Dylan to draft a letter on our behalf?
Yeah, there's some good
It's pretty
language.
shady sometimes.
But there's the sample letters from elsewhere, I can just modify.
He doesn't need to.
I would, then, I would support that. Because council doesn't know anything about it. Which is why I think Mike's point about maybe looking at what all the boards, or if we just want to start with this board, does this board encompass a piece of we advise council on historic aspects? They don't have to take it.
Right,
There's other places where the boards have like typically 6 or 7 things that are, when this purpose is stated at the beginning of that section of the code, it says, these are the things that have been designated for this board to do.
right, this one just is quite, I think the other boards tend to be quite, they have a lot more broad authority than this one. So, sites and facilities has preservation planning, master planning, recommendations, and education and outreach and.
And my impression from serving on the board is it seems the majority of the board wants to remain focused on the city properties. I don't know that they
Right.
want to expand out to other properties that are not city properties.
That's true. I think that's fair to say.
Well, I would support that too, like expanding us as advising city council. Because I just know from sitting on council, some of the stuff that we talk about, unless I bring it up or Dylan brings it up, they don't have any idea.
Right, and a lot of it is kind of specific.
Well, it
and
is.
Technical and like not really that accessible to like a layperson necessarily. So having some more expertise like the board has is useful.
Could we do a work session with them sometime?
We definitely could, we probably can't do it before like end of September.
Did
But
you see that?
I know, that's
I'm
what
just
it's
trying to
like,
I'm just like the next few.
in the
are
middle
just,
of
like,
winter.
Like, as you know, Sites and Facilities is going next week.
Yeah. Right, which that would be a really good one, there's quite a lot to talk about, actually. There's a picture of, the hose house number 2 with a plant growing inside it through the brick. That I think is quite compelling. So, anyway, I think that would be nice, is like maybe an annual sort of work session, when it makes sense to say that you're gonna go working on these are things that you're interested in potentially working more on or talking more about and getting that feedback.
All right,
I've worked in a place where actually at one time they had quarterly meetings, and then eventually there was a manager who did not like historic preservation, and then he ended the meetings. There were no longer meetings between the historic board and the city council.
Quarterly might be more than we, I try to put like a little update each
Once a
month,
year would be good.
but once a year, I think. would be
once a year, I think
quite
it's
nice.
totally acceptable, and then as needed.
Yeah, just because we asked.